Welcome back to the Context Coaching Podcast. We're joined today by Joanna Butcher, Athletic Director, Milpitas High School. Coach, appreciate you finally carving out some time in your day to jump on the pod.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
It's all right. I'm looking forward to this. It's been a 2-year recruitment, and we're here now. So why don't we dive in and take us through the journey? Start at the beginning. What was the process like for you landing your first job and any subsequent ones along the way? And what were the formative years like that led to you even being in this space?
Oh my goodness. How much time do we have? Okay.
We got a lot. I'm going to lean back in the chair.
All right. So I'm going to basically let you know. So I have an older brother who's 8 years older, who was playing basketball, baseball, football, etc. So I was a little kid, age 8, telling the moms at the baseball game that they talked too much and they were distracting from me trying to keep score. So I don't know if that was age 8, but it was definitely by age 10. And my dad and mom were both involved in sports and music and different things. And so I was in it. There was no ifs or what type of thing, on snow skis, on those little plastic ones early. So I started off playing baseball. That was probably my first team, one of the only girls playing baseball. Ended up playing that through age 11. My mom thought I was going to get too rough playing with the boys and wanted me to move to softball. And then it turns out I ended up hurting myself playing softball. Gotta love that. And then had another friend who, I would say second grade, playing soccer. And I came home and told my parents I want to play. She can play, I can play. And all of a sudden I'm playing soccer all the way through. And then played CYO basketball. The first league started 5th grade. So played 4 years of that. Have some really amazing memories. Say that I get to pull out the glory days. 8th grade basketball, CYO. I grew up in Vancouver, Washington, right out of Portland. And so the Portland Trailblazers are right there. And I used to go to games, but there was this tournament called the Fred Meyer Classic. And they always had the championship game actually at the Memorial Coliseum. So on the floor. And then and as an 8th grade team, we won, got to play on the floor. And so they invite you back to play at halftime of a Blazer game. And so that was actually really cool on that one, taking you back to glory days on that one. And then in high school, just thinking about how I chose soccer over basketball because I wanted to be a varsity athlete my freshman year. And so I was a 4-year varsity starter for soccer. I was a 3-year varsity basketball starter, and I was a 4-year varsity softball starter in high school. And basketball team, we went to state every year. We won league every year. It came from a really dominant program, which is really exciting. Soccer, got to have a couple league titles. And the last year actually went to the semifinals of the state tournament. And that was the first time in school history. So that was exciting. In spring of 91, our state of Washington moved from having a slow pitch championship to a fast pitch. And so my high school is the first team to ever win the state title for fast pitch. And those are my glory days from high school on that one. But I played year-round softball, went to a bunch of different tournaments. We were the only non-California finishing ASA national place team, placed 5th at nationals that year. Back in 90, and then 91, I think we tied for 13th. We were back in Baltimore, but got to travel. And so part of the amazing thing about athletics and thinking about the positions that I played and the travel I was able to do, my first trip to Hawaii was because of playing softball. Been to St. Louis, been all over the place due to being able to be part of an athletic team that traveled. And so that was amazing just to be able to see the USA a little bit on that one. And then besides having my dad as a coach for baseball, then softball, and he was my CYO basketball coach, he didn't know anything about soccer except he'd yell, run, when I'd go to throw the ball in, which is always pretty funny because he was super supportive on that one, is that I was always in a position, I'm going to say, of team captain. So I was a point guard for basketball. I thought I was going to be tall. I went from point center to point guard in a year type of thing. But at point guard, you pretty much have to control the tempo of the game. You're controlling defense, all of that. You're setting a tone. And so when I played soccer, I was either keeper or center midfielder, both in those positions where you have to communicate. You're making sure that your team is in sync, and you're the coach on the field. And so essentially from a young age, I was putting myself into positions essentially to coach, because in softball, I was a catcher, I was a shortstop, and I was a center fielder. And those positions happened because they had an opening need. They're like, oh, you can do this. I need you to go play center. And I was like, but I'm not an outfielder. And they're like, but we need this. And also being able to do so many different positions. It's like me playing keeper for soccer. I did it because we needed it, not because that was like what I wanted to do type of thing. It really puts you in a mode for having to understand the why in a game, which is what a coach needs. A coach needs to understand how to be the most successful and pull things from people. And having to be in that position as an athlete myself, I think that was just a natural course for coaching. I was recruited to play softball at Davis. I'm going to tell, it's something I tell all the athletes right now. Is like, when I tell you that you're hurt and you need to rest, I'm telling you from experience, because I didn't listen. I ended up making it worse for myself. And that is a story I share with all the athletes whenever they listen to me on that one. But I knew that I wanted to coach. And so I ended up thinking that I was going to go one way when I was at Davis in regards to my studies. I was always a poli-sci major, but I took a coaching class. And then my last year, I took a couple education classes because I knew I wanted to coach, but I wasn't sure what else I was going to do with it. And so I wasn't really sure. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to go to Tahoe for a summer, work at one of the casinos. And I ended up getting a job as an assistant basketball coach and staying, and said, okay, if I can sub and survive, then I'm going to go back and get my teaching credential, which is what I did. I tried that. And then I got my teaching credential and started coaching. And as a student teacher, how many people can say that there's a student teacher, they're coaching 2 sports at their school? I became, while student teaching, I was the varsity girls golf coach. And then I became the JV girls basketball coach. And then I was just subbing in the spring and was the varsity softball coach. And I think also based on my parents, they were always involved, whether it be charity work or coaching. I just knew that I could do it. So there wasn't really a say no question to it. It was just, yes, let's do it. And I started at Milpitas back in fall of 98. I immediately had the JV girls basketball position and the JV softball position. And I had so the mentality that I grew up is the JV coach was the assistant varsity coach. And so I was going to the varsity practices, and it was trying to make sure that everything that you did was meshing together because you were in a program. And that was the mentality that I had as a young coach going forward. And I'm going to be able to say that the biggest successes that I've had is when I was able to take over the varsity coaching job and have a league title, have top place finishes in our league. I have a CCS title. Our team has a CCS title, a second place in CCS title for girls basketball. We weren't able to quite capture that in softball when coaching. We've got a second place CCS finish. I've coached tennis, and that was a learning experience for me because my mom was a tennis player and I was the person, I hit it over the back of the fence, and my mom's, maybe it's not for you. And so having to learn, and that was really challenging as a coach because I understand the fundamentals from being an athlete and playing. And how do you transfer another sport into being able to coach it and be able to look at things? And then having those conversations about trying to teach it to somebody, it was really interesting. And in regards to, I mainly have coached female sports, but I did spend 3 years coaching the boys golf team back in the early 2000s. And then I also coached 12 and under AAU basketball team, the boys. And that was amazing. And I think that actually benefited my varsity girls basketball team because during the summer they would practice and scrimmage. And it really, I think that helped fine tune some skills on that one. I'd say one of the things that I'm most proud of right now, and it came through the girls actually on our campus, is 3 years ago, we started the varsity girls golf team. And so I've been coaching that the last 3 years. And the first year was a struggle trying to get the girls out there. And then that second year we had the numbers, we had momentum, and we won our league. And actually as a team qualified for the league tournament. And then we qualified as a team for the CCS tournament. And so to be able to do that in our second year of existence was pretty amazing and a testament what the girls put into for their effort. And then we moved up to the upper division this past year, and we were still able to qualify 3 individuals for our section tournament. And I thought that was really incredible to be able to go forward on that.
Then you transition into being AD. Talk about that for a minute.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so let me see. So I was teaching social studies, I was doing class advising, and I was coaching. I was all in, got my master's in administration back in 03 at San Jose State, and really loved just being in school, like the activities part of it, the athletic side of it. And so there was an opening in fall of 08 to be the activities director who runs leadership and the ASB and that type of thing on our campus. And so I actually transitioned to that and spent 11 years as the activities director on our campus. And one of the roles with activities director is to support the athletic program and work on the spirit and what can you do on that realm. And it was a natural segue for me in athletics to be able to, how do you do that for the school? Because it's the same thing where you do for athletics as you do for the school. And our current athletic director was going to be retiring. I was able to step into the assistant role my last year as activities director. I was also the assistant AD so that I could start learning some of the ins and outs and that type of thing. And then I took over as the athletic director 6 years ago. And so I'm only the 4th athletic director that the school's ever had. And then obviously, because I'm only the 4th, I'm the first female athletic director that the school's ever had.
All right, let's dig in. So you got 2 paths here on this fork. And the question is, what did you realize right away when you took over as head coach or as AD, right? So you can answer both, one, neither, whatever. But we have this background, right? You're a college athlete. You've had great coaches. You've had great mentors. And now you're in charge for the first time, right? What did you realize right away that you needed to figure out that you thought you knew? And it can be coaching back as the JV coach. It can be when you became the varsity coach. It can be multiple. But the whole point, Joanna, is how do we as athletic directors help our coaches potentially avoid some landmines, right? That we ran into, even though we knew full well they were there.
Right. So it's one of those things that I say that I can look back on now because I had great successes with teams where we'd win. And I'd look at being a young coach, because you get scared so much to make sure that that you're not their parent, you're not their friend, but you have to open up still. And I was so afraid to open up and share parts of my life that they could know, I guess you could say, so that they can feel included. And letting them see your personality a little bit more. Those are things when I look back on, I should have done more. And I started to, as I started to get older, but I felt like I was so young that I was trying to draw the line, and I drew that line and I put up a cement wall. Like it wasn't something that was like a line in the sand where you can wash it out and go back and forth. And because I didn't want to get into the kids' drama, and I was trying to be supportive. And so I know I didn't navigate that as well as I could have, because I know I had some early relationships. And then I thought as I got older and was thinking I was teaching, at the age of 25, I was too friend based with this one. Like I need to make sure that I'm a stronger type thing. And my conversations that I have now is I want you to know what's in their life. I want you to support them. I want you to be a mentor to your athletes. You're not your friend. You be a mentor. And I think it's the phrasing that I'm trying to have with our coaches now, because I'm going to be honest, I was told at a young age that I coached like a guy. And I was super offended because it was are you saying because I'm holding them accountable? Is it because you're saying that I'm making sure that everybody's productive at practice? Are you making sure, is it because our goal is we do have goals and we want to win? Is it because we're successful? Is it because I'm not playing the mom role with them and some of them want that? And it was an answer to me, but that stuck with me in regards to maybe I didn't veer where it was intended. Like that was supposed to be advice that was given to me to say, hey, open up, share more about your life type of thing. Because it was much easier after I had my daughter. I know with even classes that the students were like, oh, I want to hold her when she was a baby and that type of thing. And it was like you were inviting them into your life a little bit because that was an easy way to do it. And it definitely improved relationships because I have athletes that I stay in touch with, but from my earlier years, except for some that are coming back as coaches, it's just like on social media that I'm friends with. And it's not that I don't want to be. And you go into that. How do you go back in and say, hey, I would like to be, I could say friends now. I'd like to know what's going on in your life because I'm still care about you. I'm still concerned about you, even if you're 15 years out of high school. And I'm excited and I'm proud of you. Like, how do you get a chance to go back and tell someone that they believe your words when you say, I'm so proud of what you've accomplished since high school type of thing and getting into that. And so I have regrets in that realm. And so I think because I have some regrets thinking about it's having those conversations with the new coaches because I love the mentoring. It's the same thing as coaching. It's you get that one-on-one and you ask them what their strengths are and you talk about, okay, what are you struggling with? And it's really nice to be able to go with trying to remind people, are they having fun? Is it not, is what you're doing making it not fun? And trying to have it because ultimately you want to be successful. You want to make them more confident athletes, people. You just want them to be successful all around in life. And athletics can do that for them, but you want them to have fun. You don't want them to dread going to practice, games, whatever, that type of thing. And so it's that whole what do you do off the court conversation that I'm really focused, I think, with my young coaches right now and trying to have with them. And it's instilling discipline, but what's too much and what's not, and saying, okay, I'm going to support you because I'm not there every day, but it's going into so many areas. But ultimately, it's about that personal relationship between the coach and the student athlete. And how do you keep a line, but keep it a supportive line and more of a mentorship that you can have with them.
Yeah, and I think it's hard when you're young, right? So you're getting into this at 22, 23 years old, right? The boundary piece is either one extreme or the other, right? Finding the middle ground of it depends, like you said earlier, is a thing that comes with wisdom, which is only comes with age, right? So I think ultimately that's great advice. What would you say, either as a coach or within your role as the athletic director, is the best thing you do in your program that you think has the largest ripple effect on the culture you're trying to create? Meaning, if after 30 years you decided to go elsewhere, regardless of environment, we're doing X or we're doing Y because of the transformational impact it has.
So I was fortunate because I inherited a really strong base program and I just needed to make some of the changes. The only changes I made immediately were just so that it worked with the way my brain worked type of thing. And just embracing technology and being able to use that. And I think that what I've tried to do as much as possible that is it's not going to be, there's two things. One is not going to be seen out there for everybody. And just things that I've tried to streamline for coaches with making the cheat sheet so that they've got all their links in one area, using the Google folder and thinking about how everything that they need is there and going for that so that it's making it as simpler, trying to ease the administrative life of a coach because that can be overwhelming and that the student athletes can suffer if the coach has to spend too much time doing the administrative type things. And so how can you try to simplify things as much as possible? Looking for apps, looking for the social media aspect of it. And I think there's a lot of that behind the scenes that I've streamlined and made easier. I've had a lot of coaches give me suggestions like, oh, it'd be great if it was this. I was like, oh yeah, we can do that. Making more handbooks and guides, that type of stuff. But I'd say one of the things that student athletes love Instagram. They love all social media. I remember when I started that for the school, it was kids immediately was like, oh, is this for Graham? And they do this and they pose and do all that sort of thing. And so they love seeing themselves. And then if they got tagged, I'd say, hey, send in photos, or if they got tagged in it and they'd reshare it. And so it was a like, hey, I made it type of thing, or what's the athlete of the week and getting the certificate for athlete of the week. Cause they actually do love the athlete of the week certificate. That is one thing that is definitely something that they still want to brag about, which maybe is more so than the end of the year certificate, but they love that athlete of the week certificate and the little sticker that they can stick on their water bottle. It says athlete of the week. So it's really, I think that trying to spread awareness for games, trying to celebrate the athletes, getting the parents in social media. We always hover around 21, 2,200 followers on Instagram. I'd love to have a lot more, but it's one of those, it just comes down to kids. It's not cool to follow the school type of thing. And I don't bother following anybody back except our coaches, because I talked to our coaches about creating a coach account. But I think the social media aspect and just putting it out there and just trying to make sure that everybody's aware, and starting the app so the parents can use our school athletics app and be able to have the schedule and have the rosters and do media days. And so we have an athletic department photographer team that was able to start, and they're building their portfolios, and encouraging relationships. And so the kids love that extra bit, knowing that somebody's at a game. And I think that publicity wise, I'd say is, I think, probably going to be the little bit of the legacy right now.
Good. Love that. I think that's super important, right? We talk about branding often, and I think that's a way that you can create separation between you and other places. So I'm loving that you're doing that. As a multi-sport athlete yourself, and probably, I wouldn't say you're an outlier. Most of us have coached multiple things, but in the era of sports specialization, you're an alien, as am I. And so what I'm always curious about, and what I try to encourage our coaches to do is, and hell myself, is like, how are you watching other sports and what have you learned from them that you've been able to apply to your primary or in your new role, right? That you've been able to say to your soccer coach, hey, look, the tennis coach was doing this the other day. It might be something beneficial for you to try.
So this is actually, I'm gonna credit my flag football coach. First year this year, we had it out here, Matt Robbins, on this one. He started this, and I've shared this with my newer coaches. So this is something I've taken in when I've done my mentor check-ins with my newer coaches, is because flag football was such a new thing for all these athletes, and we kept a team of 24. He ended practice every day with, you have to say one thing that either was fun or that you learned, and you had to look to the person to your left and tell them one thing they did well. And so all of a sudden, at the end of the year, they may have allowed flag football, they play zones. They may allow, I'm just going to say yards, they may have allowed a 40-yard run, but a girl eventually pulled the flag, and the entire team is cheering that the girl pulled her flag. And we had another coach, a very prominent school, ask him, say, I don't understand. Like, you just gave up a 40-yard run, but the girls just like, they're cheering like they won the Super Bowl. And he's like, yeah, because she stopped her. And so they're so excited that she did what she needed, that she got there eventually, and they just want to cheer, and they're happy about they did it. And they're always trying to turn it to, okay, you're never going to be perfect 100% of the time. And so what can you do from there? And so I've taken how he ended practice and suggested that with a couple of our newer coaches at the freshman and the JV level developmentally. And both of them were really excited to use it and try it. And so I know with our brand new JV girls soccer coach this year, she took that suggestion, and so she ended practice. She started off with just saying, okay, what was one thing that was fun or that you've learned today, or that you felt that you got better at? And so she's actually started that with that. And so she then moved into, what did you notice about your teammates? And then she talked about how the thinking about what your teammates did and what they did well has improved their team chemistry overall. And she thinks it's helped their trust. And so I give a lot of credit to Matt on that one, because I don't get, during the fall season, because I'm coaching, I don't get a chance to go out there and watch as much of the different teams of what they're doing. But in the end of the season meeting, I said, what are you most proud of? And so it's great that I can, when I have those meetings with the coaches and they tell me things that they're proud of, and then I can share and I credit them with other coaches.
Got it. Yeah, no, that's great. I think that I just wrote that down, and we've got essentially our last practice today. And I like that. We usually do celebrations at the end of games and at the end of practice and try to name, hey, I want to celebrate Joanna
Right.
for the way in which she picks so and
Yeah.
so up. Yeah. But I like the what did you learn, right? I think that the framework of the twofold prompt is great. Love that. Year one as an AD 6 years ago to now, what shifted for you? Where
Well,
have you found efficiencies? What are some things that you've started doing? What are some things you've stopped doing to get better at your role?
so this is the other thing is that first year was a very interesting year for me because I went from hosting a state championship in football to COVID shut down. And so the next year was crazy on that one. It's like, how do you get it? How do you going? But this one, I'm going to keep it simple. You can tell I like to talk, but we've always had a parent, guardian, and student athlete meeting every year. And it used to be before the season started. And I, I didn't think that was as efficient. And so what I've done is I've required that the paperwork be due earlier. And then the paperwork's due or sometime, and then I then have the parent guardian meeting. So the only people that are attending the meeting are those that are actually invested in playing. They're not just there for wonder what's happening, can you tell me more type of thing. It's the yes, we want to actually do this. We started that process. And so due to COVID, it's like, how do you, because we did all our meetings on Zoom, it's how do you give that kind of Zoom effect where you can do the breakout rooms where the parents actually just get the coaches. They get that one-on-one time. They feel like they can have questions. Because throwing everybody in a gym and, hey, you sit here, yeah, no, that's not effective and it doesn't really work. And so I've taken my spiel, code of conduct, what happens with grades, all of that type of thing, added a couple of videos, got it down to 28 minutes and 41 seconds of a me video for the athletic department. And every coach shows my video and then they're live with the coaches. And so we split up. So for winter, for example, we had boys soccer in the theater, girls soccer in the library, wrestling was in the cafeteria, that type of thing. Basketball was in the gym. And we were able to split up. They show my video and then it moves right into their sport specific. And so they get a chance to have that captive audience with the coach. The coach takes them through the expectations. This is what tryouts looks like, et cetera, and goes through and then signs in. And so a meeting that used to be like 2+ hours, we've now streamlined into an hour and made it very sport specific. So I've covered second fold, but beyond all the forms they filled out. It's the second time they've heard the basics that they need to. And I'm keeping it short and sweet. And then it goes straight into sports. They can focus on what they actually need to do. And so I'm most excited about making that change because it's how do you bring that idea of the in-person meetings with that Zoom world of that breakout room so that people feel that they can actually get something out of it.
No doubt, right? And those are the challenges of how do you navigate these, I don't want to call them mandatory, but sometimes we're checking these boxes to make sure we've done things to make people walk away saying that was super productive, both them and us, right? So that's a great way to attack that. Follow-up question, same vein. What's the best tool you have recently adopted as an AD and or a coach, right? And I've shared some of these in our conversations, but I'm always curious what other people are doing. And while you're thinking, tools like Calendly, Tree, things like that make your life easier.
We have a link. Trying to get as much up on the website for transparency for parents, definitely. So having a website that functions is key.
Always.
Yeah, that's always it. I'm just thinking about some of the different apps. I think with the advancement just in technology of just trying to stay current and trying to increase the communication piece and trying to make sure that everybody you can use many different mediums as possible to try and reach out to people. I'm gonna be honest, I know there's things that I use, but it's I've stopped. I used it in my early, like I used to use Trello for organization, and because I use that in activities world, and I've stopped doing that a little bit more. Now I've got more, I've got my spreadsheet with a couple tabs and it's got my reminder to do type of thing. And I'm a big fan of Canva. There's a lot of companies out there that do different things, but I was using Canva with activities and all the social media stuff. It's an app, it's easy to use type of thing. And how do you create it? I think that trying to I'm going to be honest, the biggest thing that I've done is ask for help and reach out to my IT department and say, "Hey, I want to be able to do this and this. Do you have someone that can teach me how to do it?" type of thing. And so even just getting better with how you can use Excel, because there's so many things that you can do with it that would make your life easier, and having the sheets talk to each other and that type of stuff. I think the my willingness to learn and adapt with technology and bringing technology into the athletic department is one of the
shifts from Jeff.
it is just a little, but part of it is I think COVID's pushed a lot of things as well and has pushed the need for it. So
No doubt. I just also want to point out that you said I was using Canva before Canva was cool, but we'll let that one go. Where do we want to go? What have you most recently changed your mind on? So, in this world of polarization where everybody seems to get more dug in on their positions, right? Part of our role in the it depends answer is being willing to challenge our belief system. So, what's an area where you used to believe X and now you're, nope, you know what? I've shifted to this side purposefully, and here's why. And to free up your thinking, it doesn't have to be about your job. It can be anything in life.
I it's interesting with sportsmanship is just one area that I'm sure I can touch on so many different things, but I'm gonna be honest, when I was coaching varsity basketball, etc., expectation was to win. I was a little bit like, I didn't yell, I was a stomper. It was like type of thing. And it's tough to lose occasionally. And so it was one of those, I'll be like, oh, you need to go through, but it's making sure that you have your perception of how you look as a coach after the game. And so it's sportsmanship and perception. I'm going to shift a little bit, because I think that I spend so much time talking to coaches now about perception and things that I didn't recognize as a younger coach or see, because necessarily wasn't pointed out. And now that we live in such a digital age and everybody's got their phone out, you never know what's going to be captured. And so you really have to think about, it's how do you protect yourself as an educator, as a coach, as an athletic director, what you're doing and how you phrase things and making sure that things are out there. And so I think that I was a little bit more, this is all you need to know, when I was a younger coach type of thing. And you don't need to know anything else. And I think that the need for transparency, the need for, because it comes down to perception of how they interpret it, recognize sitting down that extra minute, whether it be sportsmanship type thing, and say, I understand that you're upset. You should be protective of your student athlete, yet I want you to think about this. And then having that type of conversation. And so I think that maybe being a parent and looking at my child being involved in things, you look to see how they're treated by teachers and coaches and directors for whatever they're involved in, and looking to see how your child reacts to it. And so I think a lot of it is going into, I think loosened up on okay, I can share more about my life, or I need to remind you that somebody's always watching. And so it's not what you say, but it's how you say it, and having all of those. I think that I've shifted a lot in the last few years in conversations and trying to being able to stop and saying, okay, my time's valuable, your time's valuable, but trying to then share also, I want to give you time, but this moment in time, this exact piece of time, I'm overwhelmed. I can't give that to you. And so it's how do you phrase that so that they feel that you want to give them, that you recognize that they need to talk to you, but at this moment in time, it's not going to work because you're not going to have the best conversation. So I know I'm all over the place on that one, but it is, I'd say it's a reflective piece in regards to getting older and wiser and being a parent and watching a little bit more. It's like watching and taking the time to listen and
Mhm.
taking an extra moment to recognize that there's more than one way to do things and trying to figure out which is your sticking point. And some things it's you have to stop and think, is it that big of a deal if they do it different? And
Mhm.
what? And then it's that having that conversation and trying to explain to coaches, if you do it this way and you miss this deadline, it's a domino effect. And this is all the people that it affects, and this is what it affects, and this is how type of thing. And
No, I think that's great. And I think it's not necessarily all over the place. We had a deal last night where we played terribly. And at the end of the game, the other team, their best player, they played well and they were less than cordial in the handshake line. And it was like, not necessary. My buddy's the AD. I called him. I'm like, FY, this just happened. Do what you want with it. And the dude that was recruiting the kid to play next level was there. And I was like, hey, man, just FY, this happened. It's a great teachable moment for this kid. You might want to lean into that because they're too good of a player to behave that way.
right,
And it comes off a little bit of sour grapes, but that's not the intent. It's we'll lick our wounds, we'll take our whooping, but it's just, how you behave matters. And you never know who's watching, to your point, who's filming, who is around that could potentially help open some doors for you depending on how you comport and carry yourself. So I think that's super important. And I don't think we always are aware of that. I know I'm not in the moments when we're frustrated. And I think that's a great thing for us to think about. Let me go one last question because I know you wanted to tee a few things up and I want to make sure we covered them all. Is there anything we missed that you were looking forward to chatting about when we set this up?
I just when I was thinking about coaching and just thinking about the young coach, I felt like but you always felt like you're being watched and that you want to do the best you can and that you want people to know that you have the knowledge and that you're setting up the best possible thing. And I allowed downtime and fun time, but having somebody not necessarily involved or allowing for some extra time down is not going to ruin your practice or your games. So having station work is great. If they lag a little bit and have a little bit of social, you need to be like, all right, maybe I need to build that in a little bit more into my game. And that's definitely something that I'd say that I definitely learned because you allowed the water breaks, but these are social animals and they need a little bit of that. They need a little bit for that. They need to feel safe that they can chit chat as long as it doesn't take over practice. For and then I think that improves your relationship so that you can stay in touch and how you stay in touch with them after the fact. And I really look at, it is before we tee off, I'll always, if you were to say my girls, I'm like, okay, what did I forget? They're like, have fun. And I actually have four, because I have some quiet ones as well, but at least four of them will be like, have fun. And so they always say that before we tee off. And that's the one thing I said, this opportunity to make some memories. Like you're not in class, have fun. You're going to have a bad shot. Don't let it define you. And I say that to both teams. And I think that it's trying to watch my daughter play rugby right now. It's that same thing. I pick her up from practice. I said, did you have fun? And so I try to think about it's also trying to, how do you teach the parents to make sure that they're being parents? Did you have fun? Did you learn anything today? No. Okay. Do you think that you got better at something? Yeah, I was getting a little lower when I tried to tackle. I'm like, perfect. Good. I'm glad you feel like you were getting a little better. And so I think it's that I'd love to figure out, and as an AD, the parents are the scary part because trying to appease everybody because the athletes are easy because they're fun, joke around with them. And it's trying to maybe thinking about it'd be great to have a little bit more of the parent guardian classes and putting that out there and who wants to be part of it or who can be like more of the trendsetters or can you get your booster club to actually be a little bit more of the, hey, are you having fun? Are your kids having fun? Are they improving? Do you feel like they're improving? And then focusing less on the playing time. What skills can they take? And you were talking about earlier is like a multi-sport athlete, those skills transfer to everything. And recently just thinking about, we just had the National Girls and Women in Sports Day. And it was the first year we invited all of the senior female athletes to a luncheon supported by the Booster Club. I had a keynote speaker come up from my '07 graduating class. She was a basketball, volleyball player, played volleyball in college, but it was looking at how do sports help you in the classroom as well, and just as a person, and really going into that luncheon. It was really celebrating everything that they're doing and also asking them a little bit like, do you feel more confident? Do you think sports plays a role in that? And just supporting females and all athletes and athletics into helping them understand how everything transfers into the classroom, into their relationships, into their jobs. And because I'm a big one looking at, they talk about the C-suite directors and the amount of females that played sports, and then when there's 55% of them that played collegiate sports, it says a lot.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I share that with my daughters who were 4-year varsity 3-sport athletes, and the way in which it has served them navigating their collegiate experience, not even as athletes, just the lead in the household, right? Organizing, chasing jobs, that while their roommates might not necessarily be as motivated to do those things, has been transformational. I'm with you on that, both for the females and the males. But the data that is out there on women in leadership is, to me, it's not surprising, but like for lay people, I think they'd be pretty surprised.
It is. And simple things, looking at watching the Super Bowl, and the Nike ad comes on, and I was like, oh yeah, that's great. I'm like, I remember the print ads from being a young athlete when they really focused on body image and how you're an athlete, embrace how you look type of thing. It was really great to see, because it made me happy. But thinking about it, I didn't realize it had been 27 years since they had a Super Bowl ad. They've had the campaigns. So I was like, oh,
wow.
Interesting.
Yeah, interesting. Hey, I know you got some pressing things. I want to say more important, because this is always a learning experience, but I appreciate you taking the time. It's good to finally pin you down. Looking forward to seeing you at our next gathering.
All right. Thank you, Justin.
All right, bye.